Hello everyone, welcome back to the session. In this particular session, we are going to start with composition settings. We are going to get familiar with what are compositions. But before starting with that, let's have a quick recap of what we have done in the previous session. In the previous session, we were introduced to the interface of Adobe After Effects, in which we get to know about different kind of panels, right? We were having project panel, we were introduced to the timeline panel, we were introduced to the effects control panel, right? There are different kind of panels, there are different kind of workspaces. Now, how to start your project? So basically, we are going to step into creating a project, but before creating any kind of project, you should be very much familiar with the composition settings. That is how you actually start with your particular project. So in this particular session, we will get to know about composition settings, what are different kind of values, how to adjust them, do they mean, right? And how we can create a new composition for our particular project depending upon what kind of work we are doing. So let's suppose that you're working for different kind of platforms. There is Instagram, there is YouTube. You're going to create a video for a client which is having his own specific requirements. There could be requirement for different dimensions, there could be requirement for different frame rates, right? All these terms, what do they mean, right? And how we get to know at what particular project we have to change the dimension, we have to change the frame rate, we have to change a specific settings which will fulfill the requirement of that particular project. So how do we start with a particular project? So basically you have to come to this particular panel which we have already done in the previous session, that was your project panel. Now if you closely look at this project panel, now the very first task is to create a composition, right? Now how we are going to create a composition, let's take a basic understanding of it. Let's suppose that you are going to sketch out something, you are going to draw. Now for that particular task, there could be a requirement that okay, you are going to draw a portrait or you are going to draw a landscape. So these two different tasks will have different kind of dimensions, because whenever you're going to draw a portrait, its dimension will be different, its orientation will be different compared to when you are going to draw a landscape. Its orientation will always be different from the portrait one. There are different kind of sizes, there are different kind of dimensions on which we work, right? So how to deal with that? Now first of all, you have to go to this project panel. Under the project panel, there are different kind of options through which we can create a new composition. Now to create a new composition, we have option like we can click on this particular icon which says that do you want to create a new composition, right? If you click on this particular icon, then there is an option that you can, okay, come on, you can create a new composition and this particular panel will show up. Now it has all the basic settings which we require for our particular project. That is one thing. I'm going to cancel it right now, but after that again we are going to work with another method. How can we create a new composition? So again, you can go to the project panel. After that, right click here and choose the very first option, that is new composition, right? Again, this particular dialog box will appear and you can see all the settings which we have already seen can be seen here, right? After that, we have a different option, like we can go to the composition option here and choose the new comp. The shortcut key for it is command plus N for Mac user, and if there are window user, then you can press control plus N to create a new composition. So now you can see all the settings are there, right? If we start with the very first setting, that is your composition name, right? Now composition name means the project name on which you are going to work. Let's suppose I am going to create an Instagram reel. So your composition can be divided into multiple parts also. Let's suppose you are creating a Instagram reel, and in that particular reel there are 3 to 4 scenes. So let's consider those 3 to 4 scenes have 3 to 4 different compositions, right? Scene 1 will have all the graphic elements like this. Scene 2 will have all the text elements. Scene 3 will have all the video elements like this, right? We can categorize them also. But let's suppose one scene ends and the another scene starts. That can be done through creating a new composition. So this is how we start with a project. First we have to be very much clear that on what particular project we are working on. So let's suppose it's an Instagram reel or it's a YouTube video. So both will have different kind of dimensions. So starting with the very first particular task, that is to create an Instagram reel. So for a better understanding, let's suppose we are going to create a new composition name with Instagram reel, right? Now this is going to be the name of your composition. After that, we are having some presets. We have some width and height option. Now width will be the wideness of your particular project, your composition, and height of your particular composition. Now you might be thinking what these presets are for, right? In this particular presets option, you will get n number of dimensions, right? Let's suppose you're working with a client who has a different kind of requirement. He or she says, okay, I want to create a YouTube video with a resolution of 2K in it. Now you will be thinking of, okay, I have heard about HD, I have heard about full HD, I have heard about 4K also. But what is 2K? What is the resolution of 2K? I'm not very much familiar. So how to start with that particular project? So you need not to worry, because in this particular software you are having n number of options in which you can go through some presets which are already well defined with different kind of dimensions, with different kind of orientations, with different kind of frame rates, right? So if you are not very familiar with any kind of dimension or any kind of resolution, you can look for the presets available here, right? So currently there's UHD, that is your Ultra HD. Then we have our 8K resolution is also there. Along with that, we have some resolutions which are made for the social media platforms. That social media platforms could be anything, right? It could be for Facebook, it could be for LinkedIn, it could be for Instagram, right? So mostly these particular platforms are going to use this particular dimension only. So you can select any one, whichever you feel like. Then we have the resolutions for our channels like the TV or for the broadcasting, right? We are having some different kinds of resolution for each kind of broadcasting option. In some countries there is NTSC, in some countries there are PAL, right? So according to them, we can see there are different kind of frame rates also. Then we have for cinema, if you are going to create something which is going to be projected on a full screen, or I would say 35 mm screen, then we are having some options for them also. Now if you are okay very much familiar that okay, there are certain circumstances in which your client is very much specific about the dimensions, that okay, I want to create a project in this particular dimension only, which can be totally different of what actually it is running in the market. In the market there is a dimension which is known as the full HD resolution. That dimension is of 1920 into 1080, right? So there could be a requirement of the client that okay, I don't want to create the project in that particular resolution. I want the project should be 1920 into 1350, right? So in that particular case, if client is giving you some specific resolutions, then you can simply type that value here also. Like we can type any kind of value, whatever we want, right? Now after that, let's look at this particular value. So currently we are working for Instagram Reels, so that is having the orientation of portrait only. There is no landscape in that. So we will be filling the value, like for width it will be 1080 and for height it will be 1920. अब आप एक बार इन वैल्यूज को जरा ध्यान से देखें. विड्थ हमने दी है 1080 और हाइट दी हमने 1920. तो वैल्यू से ही हमें कहीं ना कहीं एक आइडिया लग जाना चाहिए कि हमारी जो ओरिएंटेशन है वो लैंडस्केप रहेगी, पोर्ट्रेट रहेगी या स्क्वायर में रहेगी, राइट. सो यहाँ पे जो ओरिएंटेशन क्रिएट होगी दैट विल बी इन पोर्ट्रेट मोड ओनली. एंड if I want to create a YouTube video, all I have to do is just switch the values only, because in that particular case the orientation can be switched from portrait to landscape if I switch the values in between. अगर इसी को मैं यहाँ पे 1920 कर दूँ और इसको 1080, तो यहाँ पे जो मेरे पास ओरिएंटेशन क्रिएट होगी that will be in the landscape mode only. After that we have pixel aspect ratio. We don't need to change it. Let's keep it to square pixel only. After that we are having the option of the frame rate. Now what is frame rate? It is very much important, right? Before starting with any kind of project, always ask the client that okay, what is the frame rate of your particular project, where you want to upload it. Sometimes we get the idea, okay, it is going to be uploaded in this particular platform, then we will be using this frame rate only. If this particular project is going to be used for UI UX, in that particular case we will be using some different kind of frame rate, right? Now coming to the frame rate, what is frame rate, right? You might have heard this particular term before. So it usually means that how many frames, or I could say how many images are captured in a single second. आप लोगों ने बहुत देखा होगा अपने मोबाइल फोन्स में that you are having an option of slow motion. Now what is that slow mo video? In that particular kind of video, you might have seen the movement is too slow. You are able to see each and every detail of the movement, right? And how it is possible? आपने अपने स्लो मो की प्रोजेक्ट की सेटिंग्स में कभी आपने देखा होगा वहां पे FPS लिखा आता है, and it is always switched in between from 120 fps to 240 fps. Now what does that mean? It means that 120 frames or 120 images of that moment has been captured in a single second. Same for 240 fps. जितना फ्रेम रेट ज़्यादा होगा आपकी वीडियो उतनी ज़्यादा स्मूथ चलेगी, आपकी वीडियो में उतना ही जो ब्लर है वो कम रहेगा, मोशन ब्लर बेसिकली वी से इट. तो फ्रेम रेट इज वेरी मच इंपॉर्टेंट बिफोर स्टार्टिंग विद एनी काइंड ऑफ प्रोजेक्ट. यू शुड बी वेरी मच अवेयर कि आपके प्रोजेक्ट का फ्रेम रेट क्या है. यूजुअली इफ यू आर गोइंग टू अपलोड फॉर यूट्यूब वीडियोज इट इज 25 fps, और for Instagram we can switch to 30 fps also for a smooth movement. And for UI UX we use a frame rate of 60 fps where we need a smoother animation to conduct, right? That is what frame rate is all about, ki how many images are captured. Let's suppose I'm going to create a movement here. For example, मैं अपने हाथ को मूव करता हूँ ऐसे, राइट? बहुत ही बेसिक सिंपल मूवमेंट है. नाउ वी हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड, लेट्स सपोज इसी मूवमेंट को अगर मैं 24 fps में कैप्चर कर रहा हूं तो मूवमेंट कैसी होगी. इफ आई गो एंड चेक फ्रेम बाय फ्रेम, हर फ्रेम में मतलब ये 1 सेकंड का एक्शन है, तो इसमें कितनी फोटोज कैप्चर हुई हैं? 24, विच मीन्स फर्स्ट, सेकंड, थर्ड, फोर्थ, फिफ्थ, सिक्स एंड सो ऑन टिल 24. नाउ लेट्स सपोज इसी को अगर फ्रेम रेट में थोड़ा कम कर देता हूं, जैसे करंटली वी आर हैविंग 24 fps. नाउ आई एम गोइंग टू डिक्रीज द fps फ्रॉम 24 टू 5, विच मीन्स 1 सेकंड में कितनी फोटोज कैप्चर होंगी? टोटल 5. तो मूवमेंट ऐसी होगी, राइट? तो आपने कभी देखा भी होगा कई बार कुछ वीडियोस में मूवमेंट बहुत ही ज्यादा लैगी होती है, या फिर कई बार इंटेंशनली भी वो एक वीडियो इफेक्ट भी है जो हम क्रिएट करते हैं जहां पे मूवमेंट बहुत ही लैगी होती है, बहुत ही चॉपी शॉट्स होते हैं, राइट? So that is all because of the less frame rate in it. So always remember, your frame rate is very important. How much smoothness you want in your video can be detected from the frame rate only. एंड ऐसा नहीं है कि आप रैंडमली कहीं पे भी कोई फ्रेम रेट डाल रहे हैं कि 28 डाल दिया, 24 डाल दिया, 32. नो, द स्टैंडर्ड फ्रेम रेट्स which are acceptable by different platforms, you have to follow that frame rate only, right? So again, you can type the frame rate whatever you want, and we are having some presets also that you want to have 24 fps, 25 fps, 60 fps, whatever frame rate you want to choose from. Then coming back to the set time duration, that has to be kept like this only. But if I come here, now this is the duration. Now After Effects work differently from how it works for Adobe Premiere Pro, right? Adobe Premiere Pro में क्या होता है कि आप जितनी वीडियोस ऐड करते जाते हैं, आपकी जो टाइमलाइन है वो उतनी ही इंक्रीज होती जाती है. बट इन Adobe After Effects it is totally different. You have to predefine that what is the duration of your project, because ये मोशन ग्राफिक्स के साथ साथ ये VFX सॉफ्टवेयर भी है, एंड VFX सॉफ्टवेयर में we always work in frames, we never work in seconds, we always look for how many frames are we going to work on. So that's why we have to be very much specific in this particular software, where we have to predefine, okay, I'm going to work on a 3-second project, or I'm going to create an animation which is having a duration of 4 seconds, 5 seconds, right? So how to know about those particular values? If you look at this particular value, currently it is 6, it's 5, right? So now currently the duration of my particular project is 5 seconds. So we can always change it. The very first value, as you can see, the 0, 1 here, it is for, yes, it is for frames. So it will define how many frames do you want, right? Currently my base, or let's change it to 25 fps. Now if I change the 25 fps, right, frame rate अब हमारा 25 fps में चेंज हो चुका है, और यहाँ पे कितने फ्रेम्स हैं? 1, which means कि आपके पूरे प्रोजेक्ट में ड्यूरेशन कितनी रहेगी? 1 फ्रेम की, which is not even a single second, right? To complete a single second also you need 25 frames minimum, right? So अब इसको समझते हैं. Now let's type the value है 24 frames, right? So currently मेरी जो टाइमलाइन की ड्यूरेशन है that will be around 24 frames only, उससे ज़्यादा नहीं होगी. But the moment I change the value from 24 to 25, at this particular point you will notice यहाँ पे वैल्यू 0 होगी और यहाँ पे वैल्यू क्या होगी? 1. रीजन, हमारे प्रोजेक्ट का जो फ्रेम रेट है दैट इज 25, विच मीन्स 25 फ्रेम्स जैसे ही कंप्लीट होते हैं 1 सेकेंड हमारा कंप्लीट हो जाता है. दैट्स वाई यहाँ पे जैसे मैंने 25 की वैल्यू ऐड की, यहाँ पे ऑटोमेटिकली क्या हो गया? 1 सेकेंड. तो यू कैन ऐड वैल्यू अकॉर्डिंगली. अगर आप ज़्यादा मैथ्स नहीं डालना चाहते हैं, इफ़ यू आर नॉट वेरी गुड विद मैथ्स, that okay 5 second की वीडियो का क्या ड्यूरेशन रहेगा, need not to add frame rate every time, just come to this particular option and just type 5 seconds. Now before creating the composition or before setting the duration of your project, let me clear one thing, that once you have predefined a particular duration here, right, let's suppose जैसे मैंने 5 सेकेंड की अभी ड्यूरेशन एड ऑन कर दी है, you have to make sure कि आपका जो प्रोजेक्ट है उसी ड्यूरेशन में खत्म हो रहा है. रीजन दैट ओनली 5 सेकेंड ड्यूरेशन कैन बी सीन इन योर टाइमलाइन, नॉट मोर देन दैट. नो डाउट यू कैन ट्रिम दैट ड्यूरेशन. 5 सेकेंड की है तो आप उसको 3 सेकेंड में ट्रिम जरूर कर सकते हो, बट आप उसको एक्सटेंड नहीं कर सकते. टेक्निकली यू कांट एक्सटेंड योर प्रोजेक्ट डायरेक्टली, right? In between, no doubt we can change the duration, but there are some problems which we might face. अब वो क्या problems है वो हम आगे करेंगे, but before that be very much sure that what is your duration, right? You can take a safe zone also. For example, I know that my project is of 5 seconds, but we know that sometimes clients always ask for changes, right? So in that particular case, for just our safe zone, we will set the ड्यूरेशन टू 6 और 7 सेकेंड, सो दैट कि अगर कुछ आगे पीछे भी करना पड़ सकता है तो मैं अपने उस सेफ जोन के अंदर अंदर वो एनिमेशन क्रिएट कर सकता हूँ. तो आई विल मेक श्योर दैट कि जो भी मैं ड्यूरेशन क्रिएट करूंगा वो हमेशा 1-2 सेकेंड एक्स्ट्रा की हो, सो दैट कि उसको मैं ट्रिम कर सकता हूँ बाद में. बट पहले अगर मैं एक प्री डिफाइंड वैल्यू एंटर कर चुका हूँ, उसके बाद अगर मैं एक्सटेंड करता हूँ अपनी ड्यूरेशन को, अपने प्रोजेक्ट की ड्यूरेशन को, then in that particular case I can face some problem with number of layers which I have it, number of text, right? तो वो क्या प्रॉब्लम, वो क्या फेस कर सकते हैं वो हम आगे जानेंगे. बट उससे पहले वी हैव टू बी वेरी मच श्योर दैट whatever value we are going to add to it, it has to be very much specific, right? We cannot change it later on. We can change, but we will facing some issues, right? Now currently the duration is 5 seconds. Then we have the background color option. So in background color option we can choose any kind of color we want, right? जैसे अगर आपको चाहिए कि मैं अपना प्रोजेक्ट डायरेक्टली किसी स्पेसिफिक कलर के साथ स्टार्ट करना चाहता हूँ, so you can do that, right? Currently अभी इसको white ही रखते हैं, okay? And after that if I press OK, now you can see the orientation here. अब जैसे ही the moment you create a project, you can see in the project panel there is one particular thumbnail which is having that particular icon, and from that icon it is very much visible that okay, this is a composition, this is not a video, this is not a music, this is not any kind of image, it is a composition. So वहां से आपको एक आइडिया मिल जाता कि आपके प्रोजेक्ट में कितने compositions हैं, right? So now starting with that, now you can see the moment we have created composition, दो panels हमारे active हो चुके हैं जो पहले नहीं थे. पहला that is your composition and second is your timeline. अब यहाँ पे जो आपको वैल्यू दिख रही है 0 सेकेंड, 1 सेकेंड, 2 सेकेंड, 3 सेकेंड, 4 and 5. Now these values are available only when you create a new composition, right? And the values can change from composition to composition, because let's suppose this composition is having a duration of 5 seconds and I'm going to create a new composition whose duration is going to be 8 second, 9 second, whatever it is, right? तो उसकी जो duration है वो अलग रहेगी. अब हम वो भी create करके देखते हैं. For example, I'm going to create a new composition and under that I'm going to switch the values. Now I'm going to keep it 1920 into 1080. Earlier it was 1080 into 1920. So let's change the value and change the color so you will have a better understanding what I'm trying to say. Okay, and now let's change the duration also. Let's keep it 8 seconds, right? So now after keeping it 8 seconds, now you can see जो यहाँ पे हमें output मिल रहा है, that is totally different from the output which we have get in our previous composition. Plus यहाँ पे अगर हम इसके time की बात करें 1 second, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. इस composition की जो duration है that is 8 seconds. And now you can see यहाँ पे भी एक हमारे पास composition add हो चुकी है और एक हमारे पास यहाँ पे भी composition add हो चुकी है. So we can always switch in between. Let's suppose I'm working in scene 1. So while completing or while doing the project, I can switch it from scene 1 to scene 2. जैसे अभी हम currently किस पे थे? Composition 1 पे. तो अभी हम Instagram reel पे भी switch हो सकते हैं. So this is how it basically works. Right. So in this session we have learned how to create a new composition, what are the different kind of dimensions, what is the frame rate, which is very much important, right? How we can create a project which is having a specific time, right? Different durations, how we can switch in between the composition also while creating the project. So that was all for this particular session. In the next session we will be doing something more. We will be getting more inside the project now. Now we are very much clear that how to create a new composition, कि अपने project के लिए composition कैसे create करें. अब उसी के साथ साथ उस composition में हम कैसे अपने editing को perform कर सकते हैं, अपने project में जो tasks हैं वो कैसे पूरे कर सकते हैं, images के ऊपर कैसे work कर सकते हैं, layers के ऊपर कैसे work कर सकते हैं, right? That we will be doing in the next session.